incident was about to take place that would shake the foundations of the civilized world.
It is time to open your mind. Time to discover your divine self as we navigate this holographic matrix together. Strap in, cosmic family, as we slide through this wormhole of cosmic information together in search of the truth. The truth.
You can't handle the truth.
It's time to go inside the matrix. Inside the matrix. With your host, Jimmy Brent.
All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Matrix. Once again, we're so happy that you're here with us, either live or through the archive. Either way is wonderful. We're happy to have you aboard. I'd also like to thank those of you who have been sponsoring the show and helping us out. We really appreciate you, especially our good friend of Florida, Chick. She is always with us, and we appreciate that so much. Today, we're bringing back somebody that we highly regard as a guest and as really an insightful and amazing lady, Alexandra Bruce. Those of you who have been following the show know that she's a regular on our show, and we're always happy to get her back to get her perspective on what's happening in the world. With her background in the music industry and the television and movie industry and all of her intelligence contacts that she has now, it's really wonderful to get her perspective and take on what's happening in the world, because we've long past gone through batshit crazy, and I don't know what kind of territory we're in now, but welcome back to the show, Alexandra.
Hi, Jimmy. It's great to be here.
Oh my God, what in the world? I don't even know where to start.
I know. I mean, how demoralizing has everything been since the election? It's just terrifying. Really, really, really terrifying. And it really shows you that there really might only be one or two decent people in our government, and the rest are absolute demons.
Isn't that the truth? It's just a really tough thing. I mean, we knew it was bad, but now we saw literally how incredibly worse it was than we ever imagined.
Yeah.
Exactly. The people that turned on Trump and just obviously just rolled over for their own benefit, what they saw as their own benefit. And as we were saying before the show started, that, they wanted to use Trump and ride in on his coattails, and this includes the Republicans. And now that they see him as being defeated, well, they just, threw him to the wayside and just don't even care. It just shows you where they're coming from. And the swamp is so deep and so huge. I don't know. It's hard to see a way out.
It's true. Because what we see is that the legislative branch is just completely corrupt. And we'll get into the mechanism of that and what's going on with that, as is the judiciary. And then underneath, beneath the judiciary is the FBI. Where have they been to examine the votes? What I heard is that the FBI seized control of the shredded ballots. They claimed that it was there in Georgia and claimed that it was their jurisdiction, and then they sent them to complete shredding.
Yeah, that's really watching out for the people there, huh?
Right. It's like they claimed jurisdiction and said, "Okay, now go finish shredding them."
Yeah, let's finish burying the evidence like we usually do with our cleanup squads, right?
Then, of course, they've been, remained throughout the rioting of the summer, where cities where businesses, especially black neighborhoods, were burnt to the ground.
Well, that's no big deal, though, Alexandra. Come on, that's that's
no. They named
right?
the square in D.C. BLM Square. After these people. And then now, just because like a handful of people were waved into the Capitol, there is video of what you have is a mix of Antifa, who are with the hammers and breaking the glass. Those were Antifa people. Mm-hmm. And then I guess that there were, some dumb, what they call them, vanilla ISIS. These are some like really lame white supremacists out there who were there. Somebody pointed out, that thing that they're wearing, that those are some white supremacist people. So, so now, of course, everybody, Jake Tapper, seeing it's like, see, these are Trump's people. These are white supremacists bursting into the Capitol. And then along with them were some white hat special ops who got into the Capitol. But if you see the video, they were literally waved in by the Capitol Police. Okay?
Yeah, and I saw a video where they actually took down some barricades that were up the previous day and then ended up going back up the next day. But they literally took it down and made the path clear and easy for whoever wanted to come up and go in.
I saw multiple videos of Capitol Police waving, saying, "Hey, come on in."
And then how about the video of them in the hallway, just standing off to the side as they all just wander in? It just was amazing.
Where was the mayhem and this violence or whatever? Some are saying even that the murder, that was murder of the Ashley Babbitt.
Mm-hmm.
That some are saying that was fake. I don't know. I can't really speak to that. I did see an image that was not published. I saw it on 4chan. Mm-hmm. of her on a gurney outside and looking very dead and very bloody. The blood coming out of her mouth and nose. Wow. Did not look fake to me. But just really sad, but that they're trying to turn that into like it's a 9/11 part 2, literally.
It's so overblown.
That was why they deplatformed everyone. They deplatformed Trump. I was deplatformed.
They're trying to make this into some kind of national emergency when it clearly was no big deal, compared to what happened this summer. It's a non-event.
There were 5 deaths, and the only 2 that I've really seen. One is the Ashley Babbitt getting shot in the neck at point blank range. And I've seen 3 different angles of that. And apparently one of the Capitol Police who apparently had a stroke that was unrelated, he had a stroke at the time of that event. And then, so the 3 others, I've never even heard names or anything. They're trying to say 5 people got killed. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't believe anything.
You can't trust anything with these people anymore, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, so then the FBI says, they're going to use facial recognition and prosecute everyone, and it's just like, where have you been for the past year, 5 years?
They've had Wiener's laptop, they've had Hillary's, they've had Hunter Biden's, everybody's stuff for over a year, some cases 2 or 3 years, but I just can't seem to figure any of that out.
Right. It's just they're so disgusting. They really need to be disbanded.
Absolutely. That the CIA and the FBI just need to just go away permanently. Yeah. And if we can salvage any of those people, put them in
that it'll have to be able to come back in with new everything and with a whole totally new law enforcement situation and intelligence operations.
I think
when actually you look at, when you read some, that guy who I really love, what's his name again? The Russian, he's a retired defense intelligence guy from Russia. He says, the CIA is basically an offshoot of MI6, which was only ever a Rothschild. It's only about protecting Rothschild assets. It's not about anything else. It's not about American taking care of American issues or American properties, unless those correspond with the Rothschild ones, which is, America became during the 20th century. America became the engine or the tool that was used by them to create the military-industrial, complex.
Absolutely.
And to streamline the Industrial Revolution, whatever. And they're pretty much done with us and wanted to move it over to China because you could just do it so much more efficiently there.
Oh, yeah.
And so course, this leads to some interesting stuff. So basically, I've been looking at I don't know if you saw the Hunter Biden stuff when it came out in
Oh, yeah.
October. I didn't see, I haven't seen the thing with the 10-year-old girls, okay? I have seen one picture, an image of what looks like a 10-year-old girl wearing lingerie. That's
disgusting.
Really upsetting. It's looks like Hunter in a towel, which is his usual attire, wearing a towel around his waist, and this little girl in I don't know, stripper or whatever, French lingerie.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable depravity of these people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did see, there was the foot job, right, with his niece. He was having his niece give him a foot job. And I'm not going to, elaborate on that any further, but it's just that is his niece. His 14.
What about the somebody was saying that he was actually sleeping with one of the Obama girls.
Yeah, I saw those pictures too. Yeah. And
of course, she's there pictured with him.
Yeah. No, it matches her completely. It really does. I really looked like AB with the feet and the ankles and everything. And it's yeah, that's her.
It seems like there's just no depth to the depravity of these people. And they feel like they're bulletproof and they can literally do anything that they want and nobody's going to touch them. And it's so far it's held up like that. Yeah.
A thought crossed my mind that maybe the Biden family is very much, programmed with MK Ultra, monarch programming, this hypersexual, crazy, sex program.
Yeah, could very well be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to imagine a normal human being being anything close to that. But then, the psychopathic mind defies all rational analysis. It just makes no sense at all to anybody who's an actual human being.
Yeah.
And and that's one of the ways that they get over on us is that most people cannot even fathom the depth of evil that these people are willing to go to, because for them, they have no conscience, they have no compassion whatsoever. It's just, not in their makeup at all. So everything is a means to an end, and whatever serves them, that's what they go for. But for most people, that's pretty hard to even imagine anyone being like that. So therefore, it's very difficult to imagine that they would do the things that they do, right?
It's incredible. And it seems like the MO of the CCP is taking its cue from MI6. And then you have to remember again that China and the CCP, to be more precise, is actually a cutout. It's a cutout of these same people. It's basically the British East India Company reborn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the British East India Company got sort of strapped for cash, and so they needed the Rothschild money to bail them out. And basically, so it's this combine of the British East India Company, which is the crown, and this Rothschild, financial juggernaut. And that's really what's going on. Is it's them trying to assert control. I've heard that it's about there's a breakaway from them that was trying to actually steal the right to issue money from them. And that is what is represented, I would say, by the CCP, Rockefeller, Clinton's Bush, the Bush-Clinton-Obama axis are part of this whole thing that's trying to usurp from the Rothschilds. I don't know if that's true or not, because their whole MO, the Rothschilds, has always been to arm both sides and to create war and chaos. So it's the same shit as ever. I don't know.
So what do you make about people that say that Buckingham Palace has basically been, evacuated, or there's nobody there now?
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yes, I have. And I've heard it. I've seen it, the official report being that it's about COVID, and, they're old. And so they're going to the countryside to be away from the city. Everything is COVID. Okay. So
right. It's the universal excuse these days.
Right. And so we'll get into other things that is being blamed on COVID, which is very interesting. So I was getting into the whole compromise operation of the CCP has just taken this sort of classic MI6 trick, and Mossad and CIA trick to like a whole other like mechanized mass industrial level, such that we saw what we saw with our government, what we've been seeing. We saw everyone certify a very clearly fraudulent election. And that's because everybody is compromised. Everybody.
Yeah, and a lot of them have benefited from that same cheating voting system to get themselves into office, right?
Right. So it's compromise on top of compromise, layers and layers and layers of compromise. And so, we've seen how it has completely addled and destroyed our government's ability to function at all. And so this brings us to what happened during the Capitol. The siege, whatever that they're calling the Capitol. And so basically, as I said, there were Antifa with the hammers breaking the windows, and then there were the lame, white power folks, and then there were special ops who had infiltrated the whole thing, and they were the ones who stole, I think, 15 computers. They just went right for the computers.
I sure hope that's true, because that would be absolutely brilliant.
Right. And so what they found with Nancy Pelosi's, that was Simon Parks, who's a very interesting cat.
Oh, yeah. I've been following him for a while.
Right. He's been he's taken over for Q, I guess.
Yeah, he's big back in big time into the limelight, where he came out years ago and talked about his past with his interactions with other species, so to speak.
Right.
But
so,
now
he was very open about it, and it was crazy because he was an MP. He was a British MP in northeastern England, and he was very upfront about the fact that he's basically an experiencer or a contactee or something.
Yep.
Or an abductee, whatever the word is that people want to use. But what he also has is his mother was in MI5, and his father.
Wasn't he CIA? His father?
His father was MI6/CIA, but his mother's father, so his grandfather, was also MI5. And so he's like sort of a bloodliner of the British intelligence, and so he still has contacts, and apparently he has contacts in the White House. And normally I would say, well, you hear British intelligence and you could, run.
Right.
About as bad as it gets. But he says actually that MI5 more is not so evil. It's the equivalent of the FBI, and it really is, I guess, trying to look out for the people of the United Kingdom.
Well, that would be a nice switch, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so he, don't know if he's, if it's, because Q is really getting beat up on Twitter lately. They say, see, what plan?
Yeah.
So, but this is keeping that hope of the plan alive is what Simon Parks has been up to. And what he said is that on Nancy Pelosi's computer that was seized, they found she's facilitating the buyout, the purchase of General Electric.
To the Chinese, right?
To the Chinese. Now, General Electric, just to give some perspective on what General Electric is, okay? So it's one of the original 12 companies that was listed on the Dow Jones Industrial Average in the late 19th century. It has been at the forefront of American technology and manufacturing for over 130 years, and more importantly in this story, as a major manufacturer of engines for both commercial and military aircraft. And I remember how GE CEO Jack Welch was like the hero, the corporate hero of all times throughout the 90s, and he wrote these like self-help books on how to be a great CEO and stuff, and people literally worshipped him and emulated him and wanted to be, he turned GE, he took it to uncharted levels of of powerhouse-dom. And this is, of course, before the whole tech thing happened, right, in the 90s.
Right.
And even in 2011, which, a decade ago, GE was ranked among the Fortune 20 as the 14th most profitable company on the planet. Okay.
Wow.
Now, this is a story I have not been following, and I only followed it because of Simon Park's broadcast this morning. So I looked into it because, because he said that the purchase price that she was negotiating was $5.4 billion. It's like, are you kidding me? Like
that seems low for that, right?
Low, very low. Okay. So so I had no idea what the hell's going on with GE, and I looked, and it's like GE is in huge trouble right now. It's severely underperformed by 75%. Its earnings in 2019 were negative 5.4 billion.
Wow.
And in 2019, it was also hit with allegations of 38 billion in accounting fraud. And in October of 2020, just now, GE was notified that the SEC was going to take some civil action for possible violations of, the SEC Act of securities laws. And so there she was facilitating this. So even with all of it being a massively the biggest distressed asset potentially on planet Earth, it still has 266 billion in assets, because they don't sell software. They make stuff. They make locomotives. They make, all kinds of, heavy
hardware,
stuff. Yeah. Yep. So even in its very depressed state, it still has $266 billion in assets. How are you going to sell that for 5.4?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
No sense at all. So it seems to me that what happened to the U.S. government has happened to GE. And now it's a really big national security threat, as if having your whole government blackmailed isn't. But, letting the Chinese have the same, scramjet engines as the United States is not so good.
Well, they pretty much got all the rest of our technology, so they must figure, well, we'll just finish it up with this one. I mean, what haven't they got of ours, right?
So basically, no. So it didn't happen. I don't know if you heard, but, with all of this, the craziness on Twitter, my account was decimated, but it was actually decimated on the 6th because I tweeted to Joe Biden to eat shit and die, like he was doing.
I saw that. That was awesome.
You saw it?
Oh my God, that was so good.
So, he said, it's time to heal. And I was,
yeah.
Right. And
heal this.
Literally within 30 seconds, that was it. My account was terminated for telling him to eat shit and die. That doesn't seem. It seems a little heavy-handed, and I always seem to be at the forefront of getting deplatformed, by things, demonetized.
Well, the truth is dangerous to liars, so it's hard for them to take. Anyway, Alexandra, we're coming up against our first break here, and we've got lots more to talk about. So everybody, stick around with us, please, on Inside the Matrix with our special guest, Alexandra Bruce. We'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix. We're happy that you're here with us today, and our special guest, Alexandra Bruce. Alexandra, please continue with the Simon Park's intel that you were sharing with us.
Yeah, so what he says is a confirmation of what General Tom McInerney said on the 8th, which was that the Special Forces had infiltrated the group that stormed, quote unquote, the Capitol, and seized Nancy Pelosi's laptop, which is why she's more discombobulated and incoherent than usual and calling for Trump's impeachment.
Yeah.
And so the laptop contains this wildly incriminating material, with the purchase of GE. And that another thing that a lot of people saw was, that was reported on Twitter a couple nights ago was that 50% of Pakistan was in a blackout.
Yeah.
The other night. And we've been seeing blackouts all over the world, but that, to have that vast of a blackout is pretty amazing. And apparently it was to stop this deal from going down, because that's where China and GE were going to sign the deal. It was in Pakistan.
Oh.
Pakistan is a big facilitator, a big client, of China.
Yep.
So that stopped it apparently. And but just to roll back for 1 second, there's a woman on the board of Black Lives Matter, Susan Rosenberg. She was, I think, one of the Black Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
She actually bombed the U.S. Capitol in 1983. Okay, she actually tried to kill Republicans in session. And that's what was the whole point of bombing it. She actually bombed it. She was arrested actually by Bernard Kerik, who later went on to become. He's had a very weird life. That guy. He was the police chief of New York City. And he's become a very interesting character. He actually did time himself later afterwards. But anyway, so this Susan Rosenberg is like a hero. They do Vogue spreads with her and stuff, right? And totally lionized by the left wing thing, and BLM received billions of dollars in corporate donations. They named BLM Square after them after they burnt the country down over the summer. So it's bizarre, and it's really weird because I realize now it's very clear to me that I have been railroaded my whole life into being a freaking commie. Because I would be one of those people who would be like, yeah, like when I was a teen or something.
Uh-huh.
I would probably think that was good.
Well, I would have been right there with you because when we were younger, we don't understand really the way things work. We just are kind of, sort of Pollyanna-ish and about things. And we want, sort of a utopian system in some way. But when you find out exactly how things really work, it's a whole different perspective.
Right. And the whole way that you can even have the luxury of being a socialist in America is because we have rights.
Mm-hmm. We
have rights that a socialist system would not guarantee to you.
That's right.
So then that's, as a mature person, that's what I've come to understand. It's so obvious. But so, and then I don't know if you've been following Lynn Wood.
Yep.
You have to go to Parler, but Parler I think is down at the moment because they were removed from Amazon servers. Yeah.
Yep.
So I saw their tweet and they said, it's going to take us at least a week to get back up on their own servers. And so Gab, who have already been through the mill a million, and back, remember when they were blamed for the Pittsburgh shooting and this.
Of course.
So, and the guy, you can't even believe, the guy who runs Gab is like a hardcore Christian. He's like the opposite of like anything evil. Do you know what I mean? He's like he's a little angel of a person.
A choir boy.
Yeah. And they're trying to, call him and everything about Gab white supremacist and everything.
Oh God.
And of course, that was the first thing that Kamala Harris talked about was like, see how unfair the storming of the Capitol and how white supremacy was present even in the storming of the Capitol and how they didn't get treated the same way. It's like, a lady got shot in her neck. I don't think anyone got shot by the police this summer from BLM.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, if these people get in, it's just going to be, I think they're going to send all the whites to the concentration camps. It's not going to be a good scene for white people. But, and so what I found is that, so Lynn Wood, who's another person, to follow when Parler is back up, the super lawyer.
Attorney from Georgia, super lawyer.
Right. He started parlaying warnings to iPhone users on Parler to turn off their automatic system updates, as the next auto update will remove the emergency broadcast system from their phones. And he said, if the president makes an announcement, it will be through the EBS because he's been deplatformed from everything else, including his email, mass email service. So he can't email, fight for Trump anymore. You can't email his people.
I was wondering why I haven't got any White House
Right.
updates
He was
in a while.
like yesterday, or the day before, from his mass email service, which happened to me twice in 2019, which is a really big deal when you make a living off of a newsletter. It just was pretty devastating, and that it happened twice in a span of 3 or 4 months. I was really, and nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody knows why I'm freaking out, because nobody understands what it is to make a living online and to make a living the way I do, and they just think I'm being hysterical, and it's just like, no, you just don't know what it's the equivalent of having somebody firebomb your business. Okay.
Yeah, or just rip your website down, and all you do is e-commerce, right?
Right. So, but then when I started to see, so he's saying this, Linwood is saying this about how Apple is trying to remove the emergency broadcast system in their newest updates, and he's telling them to turn off the auto update feature on your iPhone, to not have that get done to you, because then you'll miss whatever Trump has to say, which is the whole point of them doing this. But of course, it would be so completely in violation of their contract with the FCC to do that. And I had even seen the FCC tweeted like on Wednesday. It was either before the storming, might have happened on the 6th, or it might have happened the day before, telling people, like, you have to allow the emergency broadcast system to work. You have to allow the president to communicate. Like, you can't black him out. Like, you will be in violation of your contract with the FCC. And you will be prosecuted. So then I saw that Devin Nunes tweeted to people to text freedom to 98078 in order to subscribe to his text alerts. And I was like, oh, okay, something is going down. This is real. It's not just happening on alternative media sites talking about this blackout that's about to happen. But, because it sounds, after all the COVID, and really we've been so under attack by the globalists for the past year with this COVID bullshit.
Yep.
And stay home and lockdown and whatever, that when we hear that, okay, not only are you going to have to do that, but like there's going to be no internet, no ATM, no credit card processing. You can't even buy shit from Amazon anymore, And, but this is apparently, it's the good guys. It's the Trump guys who are going to be doing this. It's not the globalists.
Yeah, they don't want to stop their propaganda messages.
Right. So the whole point is it's about stopping them from buying or flying, escaping from the country is what that's supposed to be about. It doesn't allow them, it's tracking their purchases, or it's preventing them from making purchases and flying outside of the country. So right now, Mil-Specs, Monkey, and others, are saying that the entire airspace around Washington, D.C. is a no-fly zone right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was reported, Washington Post or whoever said, oh, there was like a COVID attack with the air traffic control, and they're cleaning out the air traffic control tower, and they're cleaning it up and making sure that it's free of COVID so that they can get back to, so that they're using the COVID thing even in that. And I think that probably has to do with if all these reports are right, of stopping, not letting these people escape and getting
that makes sense.
Some arrests done.
Yeah, and the ones that are squealing the loudest and freaking out the most, they're the dirtiest, right?
Yeah. So what's come out and all of this, deplatforming of everyone, because it's not only Trump, it's like people like me who not only support him, but who actually report actual news about the fraud and the theft and the unbelievable corruption and things like this. We were also deplatformed, like tens of thousands of us were. And
Yep.
and this is just as this story about Italy's involvement in the election fraud, because we'd heard about the servers in Frankfurt,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of like there was a missing piece there. And apparently it was Italy, and it was these communication satellites, encrypted communication satellites that belong to the Italian military or the Italian defense contractor, which is a massive company called Leonardo. And basically, Italy was the final piece needed to counter what is now being described as a NATO war on the United States of America. So again, NATO is part of the same globalist thing that founded the UN. It's part of the UN, right?
Yep.
It's the whole central bankers. It's, the same people who created the CCP and created China as their latest cutout for their operations, and who, their whole thing is to create wars. Apparently there was supposed to have been a war already. And this COVID was done because the war didn't materialize, because Trump is the only president in the last 40 years who did not start a war.
That's right.
And if you're an anti-war person like me, you love that.
I love it.
But if you're, hypocritical Democrat, you're just a piece of garbage for hating him, because he's great. He's the best thing since sliced bread presidentially, and it's just unbelievable what he has endured. But so basically, Italy was the final piece needed to counter the NATO war on the United States that is actually being led by the United Kingdom. So once again, it's when you really look at the history of the CCP, it is a cutout. It was created by, Western British and Western. It actually started with AIG, which was an insurance company. And what they found is that, of course, insurers, they know the facts and specific details about everyone who's being insured. It's like the most incredible place from which to survey and spy on a society is through the insurance aspect. And so that was the nucleus that actually founded the CCP, was AIG. Like, who knew?
Right. And just seems to me they were tremendously involved in 2008 as well, with all of the banking fraud at that time as well. Exactly. So it's really the same if you just are awake and if you're looking at it. It's one long story. I mean, it's not something that just happened. It's something that's been happening for centuries, but in the case of AIG, for a century. And basically, it's a cutout of the deep state, which is the central bankers. And doesn't it even go back as far as who put Mao into power in China?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen, I don't remember the details, but there's someone, Susan Bradford is great. She's someone on, American Periscope. They just renamed, the company I'm going to start starting my weekly news podcast with John Chambers on Thursday. I took a month off to move. I just moved to North Carolina, which is beautiful.
Wonderful.
I'm very glad to be out of New York, because they're really starting to talk about forced vaccines and FEMA camps for
those asymptomatic carriers.
Yeah.
Thanks. God. The insanity.
I just got out of there just in time, because now, New York is like overrun with BLM screaming like it's our streets, violent. It's scary.
They can have it.
I feel bad. I have family in the city, and I'm sad for them, because they are Democrats and they are totally drinking the Kool-Aid, and they think everything is Trump's fault.
It's just mind-boggling. It truly is mind-boggling, but please continue.
So basically the president of Italy, what's his name? Conte. According to Robert David Steele, he said, I'm told he was an agent of MI6, and that he put the full services of the Italian government in support of a covert MI6 operation against Trump and against our entire electoral process. And that was through these Leonardo satellites, which transmitted the voting data from Frankfurt to between Frankfurt and Barcelona, all these places where Seidel and Dominion were operating. And I guess, this is what they've been doing to all the elections. This is the way that the globalists planned to take over the world, was not through nuclear warfare, but through fake elections.
Yep.
And so that's why, and then everyone there, and that's why, basically you have all the corrupt people who were put in that manner, and then the people who are now about to wake up to all of it and who don't want any of it. And so what many people are reporting, like Simon Parks, like Robert David Steele, they're saying that basically we're going to be in these sort of 10 days of darkness. I mean, the Q back in 2018 or so talked about the 10 days of darkness, and people have been wanting to know, when is that going to be and what is it?
Sure, I remember that. And
they said it would begin after Trump was removed from social media. And so that happened. And so we're in it. We're in it now. And apparently it goes until the 19th of January, where you'll see some lower level arrests. You won't see Biden, but you'll probably see a lot of these Antifa members who populate our bureaucracies, who work at the Department of Transportation, who work at DHS, who work at all of these federal agencies in DC. So many of them, and Millie Weaver and Tori have been incredible at capturing them in Zoom chats, talking about how they're going to take over the government. These Antifa people. How they're going to, it's incredible. And so they have them on video. It's not like made up. They have their faces, they have their mics. You can see them saying what they're saying, which is that they plan to take over the government. Antifa members do, saying that. So I think that's who these first arrests probably are going to be. These sort of millennials, in their 30s who work at these government agencies. And then there are going to be more and more phases. I mean, I've been hearing, stories about Trump was supposed to actually broadcast somewhere yesterday, and then he didn't do it. And there had been plans about him, and then Mike Pompeo would give updates every half hour for the next, I don't know how long. That hasn't happened yet. I don't know if it will happen, but that was the plan. And what people are saying is that everything that Trump needs to do in order to break the back of the deep state will be done by the 19th.
Wow. I sure hope that's right.
God, do I hope that's right.
Let's all pray for that one.
Because, really, 8 years of Kamala Harris.
Oh, my God. If they were to get in, it would be all over. And
you know what? I don't think the military would. I think the military would run a military coup on her.
I think so too, and I think that from everything you've heard, everything I've heard from my contacts, the military is very involved right now, and we hopefully will get the help that we need. And that's all we've got, because all these other agencies, like the FBI, CIA, all that, they're totally taken over. The vast majority of politicians, even at the state and local level, are paid off, and
then
skills,
it's the high level generals.
Yeah.
Milley.
There are so many sellouts in this country. You can't even begin to count them.
Right, because then we find is that, you have retired generals like McChrystal and General L. Jones, James L. Jones, Yep. These people that Tory Morris have been, exposing, they're using internet-based psychological, military grade, the highest. This is what we've been seeing for the past 4 years is the coordination among the Democrats and the media and everything. They're using military grade I would say it's a combination of it's data mining and AI.
Yeah, there was a term for that.
Against
It's like,
the American people, okay?
yeah, is it called gray zone or something?
Yeah, that's the name of one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of that where they.
Well, that's the name of the kind of warfare that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, it's low, what do they call it? Low intensity conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been in a war, but it's this very kind of pansy-ass Chinese style,
Because they know they can't face us head on. They would be wiped off the map if that were to occur. So they've infiltrated, they've bought their way in, they've stolen their way in all these different areas. They've had decades to do it. And now, we've got one guy basically that's really leading the charge to get rid of them and free us, hopefully for good.
And it was always the plan, the more you look at it, the whole thing with the UN. And when you look, the UN, the CIA, and the People's Republic of China were all founded the same year. Okay.
Well, we should have known when Kissinger went over there to get the ball rolling with the Chinese back in the 70s that we were in for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that guy's a known traitor.
Mm-hmm. And so it was always about this. It was always about China taking everything over, buying us out, and and maybe even escalating to war because they need that. They want to depopulate.
Well, in China wouldn't like nothing better than to lose half their population.
Oh yeah.
And make it a lot easier to manage. And that seems to be the mindset of these psychopaths everywhere, is that we just got to get rid of a lot of people to make it easier for us to lead our cushy, high-end lives where we have everything, and the people are just there to serve us, right? That's their attitude.
So let me just finish up more on this Italy gate that's been coming up.
Okay, we're going to grab that in just a second. We're going to take a short pause, Alexandra. Hang in there, everybody. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. We'll be back in just a little bit with more Inside the Matrix. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix. We are here today with our special guest, once again, Alexandra Bruce. And Alexandra, we were kind of talking a little bit more about Italy on the break. And let's get back into that, because I don't think we fully talked about all of that. And the word that's coming out is that the prime minister has either been arrested, or the president, or somebody over there.
Right. Well, that hasn't been confirmed. His arrest hasn't been confirmed, but there is, I think maybe a judge has called for his arrest. It is confirmed. And anyway, so basically all of this chatter is stemming. Basically, this is a story that broke in Italy and has been the raging front page story since the first week of December in Italy.
Wow.
And the Italians are really beginning to see how the globalists who have railroaded their own country into all kinds of pacts and decisions that are really not good for the Italian people are now using the Italian government to do the same thing to the United States. And they are really, really angry over this in Italy right now. That, so there's a negotiation happening it probably won't come out that way, that the president, the PM was involved, and that Italian intelligence was involved. They'll say that it was hacking or something in order to not make it an act of war between Italy and the United States, Italy upon the United States. But it's the deep state, it's the globalists in Europe, in the EU, to be more specific, right? It's the EU has been attacking us. So it's the Chinese and the EU, which are, again, both products of the central bankers.
Yes.
And then, of course, the globalists within the United States government, or the blackmailed, compromised pieces of garbage who are compromised. So basically, this story broke from a woman named Maria Stralo Zak, and she is, I guess, an activist who just went in and started. I guess she has contacts in Italian intelligence, and she got the ear of all people of Marla Maples, Trump's ex-wife,
right?
Who's the mother of Tiffany Trump, their daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, there's a Zoom call. I posted it on the 6th. It's on my site. And it's called, the title is Report Obama and Renzi Orchestrated the Theft of Elections. And that was basically, and this is wild. You know how Trump has been screaming about the Iran deal and what a bad deal the Iran deal is from forever. What we learn from this activist, Maria Stralozac, who I guess is part Italian, is married and knows people in Italy and Italian intelligence, because there are white hats in Italian intelligence that have, are helping us in this situation. And what it turns out, so basically, the pivotal role of the Italian government in the alleged 2020 election fraud operation, in which Italian defense contractor Leonardo and their communications satellites forwarded U.S. election data from Frankfurt, Germany to Italy, were members of MI6, the CIA, at the U.S. consulate in Rome, and the Leonardo group, the defense contractors, built the algorithms to switch votes from Trump to Biden. So that's where the switches were made in these encrypted communication satellites. That's how they got made digitally. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Zach claims, and you're going to love this, that Obama's, the infamous 1.7 billion Iran deal, of which 400 million was infamously delivered on 14 pallets of cash. This cash portion, the 400 million, was in turn deposited in various bank accounts that have been financing the unraveling of the Trump presidency for the last 4 years. Perfect. And that part of this included swinging the 2020 election to Biden. So, how Trump has been screaming about the Iran deal. I think he probably knew this. They knew this all along. Mm-hmm. It was one of the last things, they did, that Obama did before he left, was to get this money out there. And it was to kick it back to a sabotage project.
Now, there's got to be some Soros connection in there somewhere, too, isn't there?
Well, there's been, untold billions being lobbed at sabotaging Trump for, you have an equal amount of money. Zuckerberg spent 400 million paying these election officials to defraud the election. He's going to go to jail. Okay. If all turns out the way it should, he is directly involved. Okay. You had Michael Bloomberg, who's another globalist. Basically, all these people are members of this, central banker establishment. And, Michael Bloomberg is like a junior member. Zuckerberg is an even more junior member. But they're talking about, they had been talking about Facebook creating one of these digital currencies that might end up being the global currency. Okay?
Yeah.
He's part of that situation, and they're calling it the Libra.
Yeah.
The Facebook digital, crypto.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I just love it that the 400 million in the Iran deal, the pallets of cash were actually used to destroy the Trump presidency for the past 4 years. But Michael Bloomberg, he spent $1 billion of his own money to try to do it. With he ran and made an ass of himself.
Yeah, absolutely. He was pathetic.
And, so these people are like, they think, it takes more than money to do stuff. Thank goodness. You have to have heart and has to make sense, So Zach claims to have the financial records to prove all of this. And she says, that the white hats in Italian intelligence have provided us with the intercepts, phone calls, and shockingly, pictures of CIA agents involved in orchestrating all of what I just described. And she says they have lost, but they don't know it yet. We are preparing the documentation with intercepts and photos and documentation on this entire thing and how it occurred. It's not debatable. It is rock solid proof of a flawless plot to take down America that was executed with extraordinary resources and global involvement. So basically you have the whole world against the United States, but it's not really the whole world. It's not the people of the world. It is the deep state throughout the world.
That's right. And that's why this is so critically important for the people of the world, people of our country as well. But what happens here will determine the course of events in a lot of other places, because if we are able to defeat the deep state here, that will embolden all these other countries where they know they have the same thing, and then they'll realize that they can do it as well.
And I think that the Japanese are really waking up to this. I think there are definitely, elements of the Chinese diaspora, I guess. And maybe even within China, it's hard to say because, there's such a blackout on what's really going on there. They're, because they're totally under CCP control. But I follow and am followed by a lot of people in Asia, like in China, Korea, and Japan, who get this completely 100% and are really actually on some cutting edge reporting of what's happening over there with this.
That's great.
So an Italian judge has already filed an investigation with Obama as a central focus. And senior IT experts have already testified in Italian federal court about this story. So it's really been developing and really happening. And so this suspension of Trump and all of us on social media, just as the story was breaking, I think was to prevent this information from reaching the Americans. Mm-hmm. At least before Biden's inauguration. So that's what's going on with that.
It's all interconnected. Yep. It's all nasty. And, these people have no problem working together with each other for their own mutual benefits. And, Trump comes along and he just, threw a giant cow pie in the middle of their game. And now, they are united in every country against, the deep state people are united against him, and they will do anything and everything to try and stop what he's doing, because he has ignited the spirit of the American people and a lot of other people around the world who want to be free. And that's something that scares the crap out of them.
It's going to be incredible. And you have to understand how the whole system of control, the interlocking boards of directors, and how basically every single, major bank CEO is compromised in this way. I think Jeffrey Epstein was germane to this operation. Mm-hmm. And so when you have all the corporations, banishing Trump from everything, like the PGA banishing, Trump, and everybody banishing Trump, it's because they're all part of this system, of this central banking compromise operation.
And it's really perfect the way it's working out, because they're all just exposing themselves.
Totally.
Right?
It's like they think that they're really, but it's because the puppeteers tell them, now you have to do it. And they don't realize it, like, you're blowing your cover.
Yeah, you're just announcing to the world that you're part of the deep state.
Yeah, you're a fucking satanic pedophile. They have it on video.
Oh my God, it's you have to laugh to keep from crying, because it's so pathetic. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's going on, and my concern is always that, you and I and a lot of our listeners out there, we follow what's happening in the world to the best of our ability. And we hear, a lot of the same information. But, Betty Bonbons and Joe Sixpack out there, how much are they going to hear? Even with the emergency broadcast system, if they're able to, thwart that in some way, how do you even get the message to people? I mean, they could. I thought of a scenario where where Biden gets arrested. But if nobody ever covers it on the mainstream, how are people going to know it even happened? You know what I mean?
If a tree in the forest,
it's
falls,
but
the
that's the
media
really
doesn't record it. Did it really happen?
Yeah,
Well,
because if the mainstream media doesn't say it happened,
for a lot of people, if it's not on the mainstream news, it didn't happen, and that's
right.
Unfortunately the sad thing I'm having to deal with my family. It's like you've heard about leftists shutting out their Trump supporting family members. I hate to say it, but I'm doing it on the other side. Like I'm shutting them. I'm just not talking to them because we're like on different planets, and I don't want to scream at them and get angry at them and say horrible things to them because that's all I have to say to them right now.
Yeah, because many of those people do not want to look beyond the obvious, the low-hanging fruit that's right in front of them. The mainstream media is, telling them what to think, how to think, when to think, where to think. It's
worse than that. They are at war with the constitutional republic.
Yep.
And it's not even worth watching them to see what they're saying, because as long as you know that they're at war with us, which they are,
yep,
that's all you need to know, because it is actually very pernicious and destructive to listen to that.
And the idea that Pelosi wants to impeach Trump with 10 days to go. Yeah. What? Wouldn't even the most diehard commie Democrat look at that and go, what's the point of that? Yeah. Wouldn't somebody question that? Anybody?
Yeah.
It's so absurd. It's just so absurd. And you can see her just falling apart and coming unglued. She knows that, her time is numbered. She has to know that her time is going to be up soon because she is so incredibly corrupt. You don't get to have $100 million on a $170,000 a year salary without some serious shenanigans going on there, right?
Right. And so all I can say is that, because even I got blue, like when Congress approved of the fraudulent election, I was like, oh my God, this is it. It's over. And then I keep finding that all of these intelligence insiders like Tory, like, Simon Parks, and
Scott McKay,
Robert David Steele, they're all saying that, no, this is where it really gets good.
I can't wait. Yeah. I cannot wait for that. I so look forward to it because the deep state's been winning for way too long. And, it's strictly it's a big club, like George Carlin says, but you and I aren't in it. And we need to, get rid of that club.
So this is here's like the backbone of, what's supposed to be going on. And of course, I'm just sharing this. I don't know anything. I'm not a freaking spy. I just know a couple of them and follow a few others more. And this is what I'm getting. And so basically it has to do with what the central bankers did, which convinced us to, when we needed money in 1871, we needed money, and we were in debt and couldn't finance projects that we needed to finance. And so the Bank of England, which is a Rothschild, entity, convinced us to create the America Corporation to run the U.S. government. And that is who has really, the federal government is that.
Yeah, with the D.C. Act. Yep.
Right. So that was the Banking Act of 1871. And we're going to go back to being a republic. And that
hooray.
Trump will be the first president of the new republic with the Constitution fully intact and restored.
I love it.
And
it happened soon enough for me.
And so, Tory has said Trump is going to be sworn in on March 4th, which was actually because they've been keeping on saying, well, the only really constitutional date for the swearing in is January 20th. what I'm finding, what I'm learning now is that no, it was always March 4th since 1776 until 1933 when FDR changed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was a globalist.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look how many socialist programs he put in.
Yeah, I mean, he was a communist.
And he basically confiscated gold, and that guy wreaked havoc.
How is he like a hero and celebrated to the degree that he is?
Well, that's the same crowd that gave Obama the
Nobel
peace.
Prize. Yeah, right, right, exactly.
So when you win the Nobel Peace Prize in our one of the most prolific bombers of other countries, it just defies any kind of logic whatsoever. But that's the way they operate.
Right. So, what else is happening? What else? Do you have any questions?
Oh, there's always questions. So, with Simon Parkes being in the picture, it always, it's somebody that I've been aware of for many years, and he seems like a straight shooter kind of guy to me. But he also talks about the involvement of other species, shall we say. And I always wonder,
because this was just brought up to me by my friend who he's a retired Marine special ops with a security clearance still. And right now he's watching football with a retired general who has told them, I don't know if you saw this show that just ran, it's called The Phenomenon. It was an Amazon Prime film that was released in 2020. And this retired general is in his 80s. He's outlived his whole family, his wife and his children. He's the only one standing, and the children he doesn't have any grandchildren, so he doesn't have to worry.
Wow.
And what he said is that this film, The Phenomenon, is 100% true. And I looked into it a little bit, and it's actually the same people who were part of Tom DeLonge's disclosure thing,
that whole thing, yeah.
Right.
As if. And
if you look at who's like involved, like Bill Clinton is in the movie, and George Knapp is in it, and Jacques Vallée, Gary Nolan. I haven't, Bill Richardson, who's a scumbag.
Yep.
And Fife Symington, who is an interesting, I think he was the governor of Arizona or the mayor of Phoenix, I'm forgetting which, and he had a major UFO sighting and he was public about it.
Well, remember the Phoenix Lights?
Yes, he saw the Phoenix Lights and he was very upfront about it.
Okay, so are they bringing out some kind of connection?
Yeah, so all these people in the movie, so that they're there. My friend is watching football with him right now. The guy who said everything in that film is true. And so now they want to, he was a high-level general, and they want to see if they can get an interview with him, maybe disguise his identity, but let him tell all. But apparently Trump is going to declassify the UFO stuff. I don't know if that's before the 20th, but it's going to happen.
Well, for years, my contacts have told me that the wars and the fighting that we've, seen are basically different ET factions that are controlling, like China. Another faction controls Russia. Another one controls Israel. And another one controls the U.S. And that all these ET factions are fighting amongst each other and using the countries and the governments and the armies as their proxies. That's what I've always been told.
I heard something like this way back when I was writing my Montauk Project book. And I started interviewing these, they were using kids. So it was like an aspect of the Montauk Project that I thought was sort of an MK Ultra thing, where they needed them. They were psychics. They were being used sexually also. These are like teenage boys. They were at this point, they were in their early 20s, late teens at the time I was interviewing them. And they were saying, yeah, that they were going to be, I was interviewing them in 1996 and 1997. And they told me, we will be going to war in the desert in 2003. But it's really going to be with these, I guess, there's a kind of gray alien. That really we would be fighting aliens in the Middle East.
Wouldn't surprise me. Alexandra, once again, we're up against a break. We have one more segment coming up in just a little bit. So everybody stick around with us on Inside the Matrix. We'll be back in just a little while. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Matrix with our special guest, Alexandra Bruce. And before the last break, we were kind of touching on possible ET connections to what's happening in our world. And that brings to mind something that one of my intelligence friends told me back in the 90s. And he said, Jimmy, you think you're watching sci-fi movies, don't you? You know, Star Wars, Star Trek, all that kind of stuff, Deep Space Nine, all this. Mm-hmm. And I say, well, yeah, sure, that's all sci-fi. And he said, there is no sci-fi. He said, there's nothing new. There's no such thing as new technology. Everything's been done, you know, who knows how many years before. But his point was that there's no such thing as sci-fi in reality, because all of the technology that you see in those sci-fi movies actually exists. It may not be in the public domain. It may not even be in this world, but it all exists and has existed for a long time. And that makes total sense to me. What do you think, Alexandra?
Well, there was a time in my life where, first of all, I have seen UFOs 35 times, you know. Not lately, since I've been publishing. I've been on a computer and not looking the sky as much, but you know, I'm not as outside as much as I used to be. But it was basically, I was seeing them all the time. And so I started to look into it, and I fell in with and ended up writing a book for the Montauk Project series, edited by Moon, and, you know, with Preston Nichols and Al Bielek. And I met some Montauk boys. And as I told you, I mean, these were late teens, early 20s guys telling me in 1997 that we were going to be going to war with aliens in the Middle East in 2003, which is a resonant year for the Montauk Project. And I was like, okay, yeah, but I didn't really see it. But then when we invaded Iraq in 2003, I was like, oh. In
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And supposedly there's some kind of technology or portals or something that were discovered over there, right?
Don't forget that's where the Anunnaki were. That's where the that civilization, the Sumeria, which is the oldest, is supposed to be, you know, the oldest really of them all. And if you look, so much of our current civilization is still almost identical to theirs. It's like it was all about accounting, and so many of the things, our legal system, our clock, 60 seconds in a minute, you know. Or I say 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour is based on the Sumerian time system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very curious that, you know, we're still living with a lot of the stuff that they invented. And apparently there was some kind of, you're right, some kind of portal thing happening in Iraq, which is where Sumeria was.
There's been a lot of talk recently, too, about med beds and healing technologies that people are beginning to manufacture. At least that's the rumors, and people are talking about it. And I've been told that all these things do exist, but will they ever be made available to regular people? You know, I often wonder about that. I sure hope so.
That's the rumor. That's the hopium that's out there. I hope it's true.
Yeah, I do too, because it will put an end to the big pharma nightmare that we're experiencing now.
Well, you can see big pharma is hand in glove with the banksters. You know,
you betcha.
It's clear. I mean, we've had basically a big pharma global coup d'etat over the past year.
Yeah, it's the pharma military banking industrial complex now,
Yeah.
right? You got to include all of them.
I mean, for their own good, it would be better if they just go away, because I don't think people are going to take this lying down. I think you have 40% of Americans are saying they will refuse the vaccine.
Yeah, and a lot of the healthcare workers are refusing it too, and I applaud them.
It's
fully
like
support that.
35% of the healthcare workers. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like normal. It's the same numbers as the rest of the population.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a PR disaster for these vaccinators.
Yeah. Well, they don't get much negative press through the mainstream because they are the main source of advertising revenue.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they own, they have a lot of juice with the mainstream media. So if there's something that they don't want on the air, by golly, it's not going to make it on the air.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So getting back to the whole thing about there's nothing new under the sun technologically, one of the people who I became really good friends with back in the day, and I'm talking about the mid to 90s until the early 2000s when he passed away, was a guy named Glenn Pruitt, whose father, it turned out, was the director of the Montauk Project. And he, in his normal job, in his normie disguise, he was a guy who was high up at the First Republic Bank of New York, but in Dallas, Texas, and in the insurance department. But he was the guy who was in charge of hiring, firing, and paying personnel. And Republic National Bank is, again, it's one of these Rothschild things through actually a Brazilian, Lebanese, Jewish guy who runs a lot of the banks in Brazil, too.
That's quite a combination.
Yeah, Edmund Safra. He was the guy who had a very sort of similar death to Robert Maxwell. You know, death by yacht.
And what happened to Ghislaine?
She's still in prison in Brooklyn.
Still on ice?
Yeah. They denied her bail. They had come up with some $35 million in bail for her, and they denied it to her. So I think that's good, because she does present extraordinary flight risk. Oh,
yeah, and she knows a lot. And so it'd be interesting if she's part of the revelations that we're about to see.
Right. Well, many people saying that she was the one who was actually running Epstein, not the other. So,
makes sense to me.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, he doesn't seem like the rocket scientist intellect.
Well, apparently he was in a weird kind of way, and he could hold his own with these scientists who he compromised and who he was using to genetically engineer the master race from his sperm.
That's a scary thought right there.
Terrifying.
Oh my God. We're so grateful that never came about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he wanted to ranch, little mini-me's of himself. But anyway, so my friend Glenn Pruitt, so his father was Jack Pruitt, who was, all the people who you talk, to who were part of it say, yeah, Jack was the director in terms of, the financial director. But what Glenn described his father, because Glenn was the most psychic person about 500 pounds. He was the most extraordinary. I mean, he was extreme in every way. The biggest human being that I ever met. He was the most psychic human being I ever knew.
Wow.
He was incredible. He was a very interesting guy who basically was my best friend for about 5 years in that area, in that time. And basically, yeah, he was in full communication with interdimensional, off-planet, past, present, parallel beings, and what he said is that a lot of the alien presence on Earth was actually here to reclaim and dig up the Atlantean technology, which was way, way higher tech than these aliens that are here now. And of course, that is, that's what the underground bases are, a lot of that, because it's all way down deep because that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he said, just to your point that there's nothing new.
Yeah, and if we're ever able to publicly unravel the deep state, it's inevitably going to lead in that direction as well, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
they've been hoarding this technology for themselves.
Sure. And that, it's such a stretch. If you're just a normie out there who's never looked into any of this stuff and only heard rumors of things,
it really sounds crazy talk.
It's going to blow their minds.
Yeah.
Absolutely blow their minds. I mean, the deep state, just those revelations will blow people's minds. But then when you include the ET connections and the different civilizations and all of that, how it fits in, that's going to be too much for a lot of people to handle, I think.
Yep. For me, it'll be like, oh, yeah. I think anyone who knows me, my friends and family for the past several decades, they go, oh, that's what you were saying back then, like in the 90s.
Exactly. My family is...
The thing is, nobody thinks I'm stupid. They might think I'm
not.
a little crazy, maybe a little crazy, but not stupid, certainly.
Oh, absolutely not. And I know my family has done a 180. I mean, I was the black sheep psycho that they never wanted to talk about in the 90s. And now all of a sudden they're saying, well, some of that stuff that you were saying back then is kind of happening right now. And I'm like, well, okay, thanks for acknowledging that and, actually seeing it. So I'm encouraged by those things. And I think there are more people being able to see it. And it would be exciting if Trump came up with his own network, of communication where they couldn't stop him. They couldn't lock him out of it or whatever. I mean, because with the friends he has and with the connections that he has, he could do that.
Classes everything. He'll be like, woo!
Yeah, I mean, on his network, though, you know what I mean? He just put it all out there and have daily shows of people giving evidence of all this stuff. Can you imagine? I think that would be absolutely incredible. I mean, it's something that I've always wanted to do is, start a media network. And a lot of people are really attempting to do that right now. But in order to engage the normies out there, they've got to see the production quality equal or better than what they're seeing now on all the mainstream in order to pay any attention to it. And we haven't got there yet.
Right. Well, in a way, part of, for me, when I see something super slick, I just think this is cabal and it's garbage. I've come to associate good information with low tech and non-slick production, bad production values.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I wouldn't see it as being slick. I would just see it being as just super high quality.
Using the technology of our times to create.
Yeah, using our technology to make the best, the best looking, not by being phony or anything, but just making use of the best technology to present the information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, because, we've got all these people on Skype and Zoom and everything else. And half of them, they're blurry. You can't hardly see them, which I don't care about. I just am interested in the information. But when you're talking about the normies out there, they're not, most of them aren't going to pay any attention to that. And they think it's, some guy in his backyard in a lawn chair or whatever. So
I wonder how long normies will remain normies with what potentially is coming down the pike with the D-class and with the arrest of Joe Biden, maybe. Like,
hopefully not long.
I think that would be great. He'll be arrested as he's being sworn in.
Oh, that would be priceless. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what Miles Guo, the Chinese billionaire who is, he finances the Chinese dissident movement, and he was the one who published all of the Hunter Biden videos and documents, pictures. And, it was his websites that were blocked from Twitter and Facebook, like almost immediately.
Now, is he missing?
What he said is that the way this election thing is going to end is going to be pretty funny. And the only thing I could think is that, Biden's going to get arrested as he's being sworn in.
Oh, that would be so awesome.
It really would.
And you immediately have half the country just out in the streets partying and jumping for joy, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. There's one other source, because Q has gone silent and the hopium has disappeared, and it's just been very, very grim. What's been happening, and it's like, oh my God, it's 8 years of Kamala Harris coming at us, coming at you.
What a nightmare!
And so the people that have sort of taken up the slack of Q and giving us the hopium are all these very hardcore intelligence insiders, like Tori Morris. Tori says, who on paper doesn't exist really, but she's been involved. She's been basically I think a Navy intelligence contractor. She's not anymore, but she was for.
Yeah. She was a contract. She wasn't directly in any of those alphabet soup groups, but she was under contract to do work for them.
Yeah. And all the, and the others, as we've said, Simon Parks, who's seems to be a bloodliner in British intelligence, and Robert David Steele, who was a retired field officer, who actually emailed me this morning.
For CIA, yep.
CIA, who emailed me to say he had taken down a video that he posted yesterday morning because he couldn't verify the arrest of, he just felt, I think he was being, abundantly cautious, because Simon Parks talked about the arrest of Prime Minister Conte in Italy. He said, I think I have this picture, and I think, he didn't confirm it in his podcast. And I didn't either. I said, he discusses this rumor. He felt bad. Like he's starting to he doesn't want to look bad by having bad information out there.
No, I can't blame him. I think that's a right thing to do. And he's definitely somebody that's on our side as well and doing the best that he can.
Right. He's a patriot. And that's really what it all boils down to. It really is that simple. And you're either a patriot who loves America and doesn't want to see America die, or you hate America and you do want to see America die. Yeah,
it's so far beyond Trump and Biden. It's really those of us who want to be free versus those who.
Do you want to have constitutional rights or not? I would love to see everybody have constitutional rights in the whole planet.
Absolutely.
That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely.
And that was what, Americans really kind of set out to do. And hey, you can be like us. And then these other societies supposedly rejected that. Look at you, you're a bunch of perverts. Why do we want to be like you? To say, the Wahhabists of Islam are saying, no, it doesn't work. But, what you see is that they were part of the central banking establishment.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine anyone not really wanting to have the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution.
I think all the people do. It's
right.
It's just like I've always said. If we didn't have governments, we'd never have any wars. There would never be a war because the people never declare war against other peoples. It's just it's impossible. It doesn't happen. It never has happened. It's always been governments, kings or queens, or in the past, that create all the strife and all the problems that we have in the world because they are in collusion with the bankers and all these other nefarious, evil people. And but I think everyone in the world wants to be free. And I want to see everybody be free. I want to see everybody be prosperous and happy and able to go after their dreams. I mean, that's really the ultimate for human beings, to be able to express themselves in that way, start their own business, do their own art, whatever it is they do.
By the way, that's what Trump has stood for the whole time. And people.
Yeah, but that message never got out through the mainstream, right? It was blocked.
Yep. But you know what? When I was moving from New York, this is a great story. The guy, so it was a bunch of Guatemalan guys. They were incredible. How quickly it was incredible because they're so tiny. They're 5 feet tall or shorter. But they were able to just wrap everything up into sound blankets and just get it out of my place and into the truck so quickly. I've never seen anything like it. And the guy who was sort of the overseer guy, he spoke perfect English, and he said, so, and I was really surprised to hear him say this. He said, so what do you think? Trump, he said, on my Facebook, I have this guy, and he was saying that he can still win. And this was on December 31st that we had this conversation. And I said, yeah, well, I mean, he won. He did win. He actually did win. He has the votes. He has the people. He actually has the law on his side.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, man, I'd really like to see that happen. I said, I know, Trump is great. He just wants everyone to make money. And he said, I know, I love him. And so there you go. The Guatemalan guy is saying that. Okay. And if he gets that, a lot of people get that.
Absolutely. We've got a question from the chat from our good friend, the Florida chick. She's asking, Alexandra, for you. You were somewhat of a connection with JFK Jr., right? What do you think about his whole situation? Is he still alive? Is he coming out? Or what's going on with that, do you think?
Well, yeah, I was friends with him. I was friends with his wife, too. Mm-hmm. I went to college with him, and that we hung out and partied in college. I was a freshman when he was a senior who had actually flunked a year. So he was 5 years older than me. And then, so he graduated, and I went to, various other colleges. I went to 3 colleges in 4 years. I was pretty crazy. But then I sort of reconnected with him through his girlfriend, who was my brother's ex-girlfriend and actually worked at the place where my roommate worked, which was Calvin Klein. She was the head of PR for Calvin Klein, and my roommate was a fit model for Calvin Klein, and my brother was the highest paid male model in the world for a while, and he did some campaigns for Calvin Klein. So that's how I kind of ended up knowing. She dated my brother.
So is he still alive?
So, right.
We only got about a minute and a half.
Died, like not too long after they got married, like a year or so after they got married. And when people talked about JFK being alive, and that sort of being peripherally associated with the Q movement, I just thought that this is like the flat earth people invading the internet. Okay. This is just horrible, fake garbage. And it really made me angry because I knew and loved both of them a lot. They were friends, and it really pissed me off and made me angry, the whole idea of it. But then the more that I've listened to people, and actually Robert David Steele posted something very brief about it, I think last week, saying that he actually faked his death in order to maybe to not get killed. It started to make sense to me.
Wow.
And I did know that she hated the whole paparazzi thing. That was driving her bonkers. It's like, why are you marrying him then? I mean, it's going to be your life, dude.
Alexander, we're coming up to the end of the show. It always flies by. Thank you so much for being with us once again. And I encourage everybody to subscribe to ForbiddenKnowledgeTV.net and follow Alexandra Bruce there. And she has so much good information she puts out all the time. So everybody, you've been listening to Inside the Matrix. We'll see you next week. Be well, be safe, and be happy.
This is Inside the Matrix, hosted by Jimmy Brent.
Who are we talking about?
Jimmy Brent. Live every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
It is worldwide.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep within the neon capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. For more information on the host and the show, please visit InsideTheMatrix.org. That's InsideTheMatrix.org. It's time to break the chains of manipulated consciousness and claim our true nature as creative, divine beings. Inside the Matrix. Inside the Matrix.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.